The Amazing Maurice, based off a Terry Pratchett novel, adapted into a kid's film that, according to my girlfriend who did not see it but heard my description of what happened in the film, is nothing like the book. Yeah, I can't say I was looking forward to this. And there's some big names attached to this too. Hugh Laurie, love Hugh Laurie, Emilia Clarke, David Thewlis. Hold on. I know there's a couple other ones that I recognized here. Gemma Argentine does it. So there's a lot of big names in here. I didn't have high hopes going into. I didn't know anything about the book, but I didn't have just adjusting myself here. Have much in terms of high hopes for this film, but I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't have the lowest of low expectations. I didn't think it looked god awful. So was it god awful? Was it secretly brilliant? Was it just okay? Well, it's not brilliant. It is certainly not brilliant. But it's also not the worst thing in the world. I mean, I have only seen, I think, a handful of, I think like a total, I'm going to see Magic Mike's Last Dance tonight. But hold on, just let me get my, let me get my playlist up here to remind me what I have actually seen this year so far. Let's see here. Playlist. Movies that I have reviewed. Let's see. Okay, so I know there's Morgan I saw. What else did I see that I actually reviewed? And I'll say this. Between the two, I would probably sit through The Amazing Maurice, which at least looks nice to us sometimes. Here we go. Oh, Plane. That was another one. I saw. So Plane, Morgan. Come on. There we go. Yeah, Plane and Morgan. That's it. I'm just gonna now stop that before Plane and Morgan. So I'd probably see this before I saw Morgan again, because the longer I sit on Morgan, the more I'm like, not very good. I mean, again, not god awful, just so much confusion tone wise of what you want to be. Just pick one lane, don't go into 17. But I'd watch Plane before I watched Amazing Maurice again. I had fun with Plane. Plane was a decent little action film. But yeah, I think so. Something I'm planning to do later down the road, when I get an actual microphone, is so I can actually have a better sound quality here, is to do some retrospective reviews of the Marvel DC Plus world, or Disney Plus shows. Do an in-depth kind of retrospect look back. And one thing I'm thinking about doing is calling it the good, the bad, and the ugly of that. Well, that I think is how I'm going to kind of go look at this. So let's look at the good first in this film. All the voice casting is good. Hugh Laurie is perfectly adequate as Maurice, or as others like to call him, Morris. Yeah, he's perfectly snide, snarky, arrogant, but he's with ultimately a heart of gold. He's got some funny moments. I give him that. He's definitely got some moments. And there's a fun conversation he has with a character near the end of the film. I will not give anything away that was not in that one trailer that came out, but I will not give anything away. David Thewlis voices the boss man, who, if you know it's based on the book, so I will at least reveal this. It's a Rat King, which in lore is actually a mess of rats that knot their tails together, gain a hive mind, and control the rats. That's kind of the basis of this. And it's voiced by David Thewlis, who, look, you want to give me a creepy voice guy? Like, David Thewlis has a great voice for that kind of role, and it works. The character moves very creepily. He's a mess of rats under a coat, so obviously he's going to move very creepily. And there's fun stuff. There's even one or two kind of creepy scenes with him, and one or two intense scenes, like legit. I will also say the animation looks perfectly fine. It's not top tier by any imagination, but it's also not bad either. I would put this, to think of some movies in the past, this is above something like a Food Fight or a Norm on the North by a long mile. but it's well below something like standard Pixar, what Pixar usually throws out, or say like Puss in Boots recently. It is below those by a good margin as well. It's in that nice happy medium. It's very bright and very colorful though, which is good for the kids. There are jokes that work, and there's actually some plot lines and some symbolism that's very interesting to engage with. And I will say this, when we talk about the bad and the ugly, I'll talk about this more, but this movie picks up, I think, in its final third. Once you get to the final third of the movie, it actually really does pick itself up pretty well. It was a bit more engaging. There were some oh shit moments, and actually some moments I actually laughed at and was actually invested in. So not like I'm like, oh, what's gonna happen? But like, okay, now I'm actually kind of enjoying myself a little bit moments. So like the last third is actually pretty okay. So now to the bad. This movie is only an hour and where's my timer? An hour and a half, barely an hour and a half. This movie felt 2 hours long. I was the only one in the theater, and I would check my phone every now and then. I was like, how much longer is this? I don't know if it's a pacing issue or the fact that a lot of the characters are not that likable. Particularly one. But I don't know, it just felt like it was dragging its feet. There is also one or two moments that just felt unnecessary. There's a plot point involving something they need to do to beat the Rat King, and ultimately it's like, well, was this really necessary? But I guess it was, but they almost make it like it wasn't, so it was almost pointless. And then they kind of play with you a little bit on that. So yeah, and as I said, going more into the bad, some of these characters aren't the most likable, but one in particular we'll go into when we get into the ugly. I will say though that it is, well, it's not a basic plot per se. There is some uniqueness in there. It is still something that you can basically kind of gauge where a lot of the plot points are going to end up. Oh, he's going to feel bad about this. Oh, she's going to learn about this. Oh, he's going to learn about that. And while they do turn some of that on their head, they don't do much with that. Like, when you hear where one plot point goes, or one plot point that gets brought up, and where you think it's going to go where you think it's going to go. And then when there's questions that are asked and answers that are brought up, you're like, does the answer justify the question? Like there's minor explanations about certain things, and you're like, okay. I will admit that there was one predictable joke I saw, but it's still funny that involves tricking some villains. That I'm like, well, not only does that mean, that's hilarious. So yeah. And yeah, I'm just not overly invested. Even in the characters I liked, I'm just not overly invested in them. They're still fine, but I'm not over the moon about them. And so we get into the ugly. Now, there's not a lot of ugly in this movie. There really isn't. But there is one character in particular that is... Okay, first of all, the movie opens up on a musical number that is basically just a speaking musical number that why? Like it closes with the number 2 kind of, but it doesn't. I don't get it. But anyway, like, what was the point if the whole movie's not a damn musical? So yeah, there's that. But really, I would call the ugly of this film, the thing that just did not work for me at all, is there's 3 main characters. Well, technically, no, I'd say there's 3 main-ish characters. There is Maurice, people call Maurice. And then there are the 2. There's Keith, who is his helper, let's call him, his swindler, his partner in crime. And then there's Militia, played by Amelia Clark, who is that narrator girl you see in the trailer. Now, of these 2, I'm sure you can probably guess where I'm going with this. Which one of these do you think was the character who I hated the most? The bland, generic boy who doesn't really think he's good at anything, only we'll find out he is good at least one thing. Or the alleged omniscient narrator who believes that the whole world she is in is nothing more than a story and that things are supposed to happen because that's the way they happen in stories, and she constantly tells you that while belittling you, insulting you, but ultimately you're going to wind up with her because you're the guy and the girl in the story. If your first answer was Keith, I don't know what to tell you. That if boring is can be just as bad as annoying. Sometimes boring is annoying. This character of the narrator, who, by the way, is not even the true narrator, apparently. It is Maurice who's the narrator. But this character is so unlikable because she's stuck in her own world of books and she reads stories, which is fine. That's fine. When we first meet her, she kind of like almost Sherlock Holmes them and like revealing everything about them. And like at first I'm like, okay, it's a little annoying, but I can get how that could work. But as she just keeps going on, she is so, and they kind of point out too, it's just like, yeah, in stories, you don't get hurt when you get involved with something. It's just a story. In real world, you can get hurt or worse. And she doesn't get that. She is completely stuck in the idea that, oh, the whole world is a story, and this is how this is supposed to go, this is how this is supposed to go, this is how this is supposed to go. I was like, look, obviously it's a fictional story. We all know that. But yeah, and we keep cutting her to her telling us, reading a story that's connected to the story. But no, like you are lucking out hard with everything that's happened because that's not how it normally happens. There's at one point where I feel like Keith wants to just snap at her to tell her to shut the hell up. And it doesn't happen. And I was really upset that it didn't happen because she is just so annoying, arrogant, and full of herself. And she seems to have this idea that she's in the right to do so because she doesn't want to wind up in someone else's story. And that she's the mayor's daughter and she has to get locked out from her story. She seems to have this like weird superiority complex about her, which is not justified at all. And she keeps doing this throughout the movie. There was one moment where I had a real, oh, that felt good moment involving her, and it had nothing to do with her, but the fact that she got her ass kicked. Literally, when you get this character, okay, minus spoiler, it comes down to the showdown, and what they're doing isn't working, so he's like, you don't know how a proper showdown's supposed to work, and he just, poof, does anyone ever tell you you've talked too much? And she just gets flung like nearly a mile away. I'm like, oh, catharsis. But ultimately nothing comes from that. So she doesn't learn any lesson about, there's one line where she seems to kind of say, but this is real life. But he's like, but it's also a story. F you! F you! Oh my God. Look, it is fun. Look, I am a guy who lives a lot, not all of his life, obviously. I live in the real world, but who escapes into fiction a lot. I read manga. I watch anime. I go to movies every week. I love stories, storytelling, fiction, all that. But you have to understand that those are not real. That's not 99% of the time, especially 100% of the time if you're dealing with anything with the supernatural, comic or whatever. But even if, apart from that, 98 to 99% of the time, unless it's a real story based in the real world or whatever, that's not how the real world works. And if you cannot disassociate those, you have a problem and you need to actually be locked up in an asylum. Because that's how people get hurt. That's how people die. And she, multiple times, could have gotten them hurt and or killed. But it's all good in the end, right? Because they all learn something. There's all happy ever. I don't know. This movie is not the worst. There's a great, and I should know, there's a scene involving, like I said, I won't say what it is, but if you know Terry Pratchett, then you know who I might be talking about, because this character shows up in some capacity in all Terry Pratchett work. there's a scene involving him and a Maurice and a character that I actually really liked, and it was a perfectly adequate representation of the character. Who, by the way, in the Terry Pratchett world, is like kind of like the top tier guy. But no, there was there was a good scene there. So yeah, do I recommend it? Look, I don't know. Let me really quick find the animated slate for this year, because that will give me an idea of how I can recommend this. Because right now, go see of the two films involving orange cats that are out right now. See Puss in Boots 10 times over this. But if you want something different, this isn't the worst. It's not great, but it's not the worst. But let me see here. So I know we don't get our first new animated film until the Super Mario Brothers movie. So we got that in April. After that, though, what else do we have? Love It Again, Fast X, Little Mermaid. No, that's not animated. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So right at the bat, I could probably tell you that Super Mario Brothers and Spider Across the Spider-Verse are almost certainly, although I can't guarantee anything, going to be better than this. Oh, Elemental, the new Pixar film coming out, which looks interesting. I only saw the brief trailer, but it looks interesting. I like it. I like what I'm seeing from that anyway. There's apparently a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie coming out, but I do not know if that's... I haven't heard anything about it, apart from the fact I know it's coming out. So I don't know how good or bad that's going to be. Wow, not a lot for animated films this year. Oh God, not another one. And I know, to the person who asks if I see the animated films, I know you're going to ask me to see Paw Patrol: The Mighty Movie. Oh God. Let me see the poster for this real quick. Do they have a poster yet? Oh, good. It's a poster that's just the logo, so I have no idea how good or bad this film is actually going to be. Just on the animation style. The Underdogs. Is this a United Artists releasing? Is this? Oh no, it's sports. So it's not an animated film as far as I can tell. Anywho. Let's see here now. There is something called Paint that looks like it's an animated movie coming out. Oh no, sorry, no, that's the one where Owen Wilson is Bob Ross. Never mind, I forgot about that. I only just found out about that movie today. Then we're just gonna have ourselves a fun little time in the movie theater here as we pick Little Bush. That's gonna be our little secret, that Little Bush. Bob Ross, man, who doesn't love Bob Ross? We're going to paint a happy little blueberry bush. Okay, so November does have Trolls 3, apparently. Okay, Trolls 3, Trollstopia. After that, nothing else is listed in terms of animation. So you got about 4 or 5 other animated films this year. I didn't see Trolls 2. I had meant to, but obviously that was pandemic era, so I couldn't. Like height pandemic era, just starting pandemic era. So I can't say for quality. Right now, I will probably have to put this at the low end of the best animated movies of the year, but it might even be the worst. But we'll end up seeing what happens. Until then, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you folks for the next one. Have a good one, and stay tuned tomorrow for Who Would Win and my review for Magic Mike's Last Dance. So thanks for watching. I'll see you later.